The following feature presentation is part of the Skywalking Network.
Welcome to Star Warsologies, the podcast about science and other academic fields of study seen in Star Wars. I'm your co-host, James Floyd. I am a freelance writer, and I write for Star Wars Insider magazine.
I'm Melissa Miller. I'm a science writer and also write for Star Wars Insider magazine. On this episode, we're going to chat about storytelling through voice acting as represented in Star Wars by all those great animated shows. And our guest today is Vanessa Marshall, who you may know as the voice of Hera Syndulla in Star Wars Rebels. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Vanessa, we are super excited that you're on the show.
Thanks for being here. It's really fun to talk to the, real life Hera, who is Star Wars mom, kind of.
Yes, Star Wars mom, at least for the animated portion of our storytelling. Honored to be your animated Hera.
Awesome. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into voice acting?
Well, I started acting as a child. I come from an entertainment family. My mom was on a show called Knots Landing, and also Dallas. She played Balleen Ewing. Her name is Joan Van Ark. And my father, John Marshall, he was an Emmy Award-winning news reporter. He's still alive. I didn't mean to sound like he's no longer with us, but I grew up in the industry, both of them being on camera, very much in the world of storytelling. And they needed someone to play my mom in a flashback for Knots Landing. And so that's how I got my SAG card when I was a kid. That was a very lucky thing that occurred. And I had always loved being in the theater, telling stories, and ended up going to Princeton. I majored in English and did all sorts of plays while I was there, wrote plays, poetry. It was my sculpture that got me into Princeton, of all things. But I love expression through any means necessary, whether it's sculpture, language, art. There are all sorts of ways that we can communicate what's going on internally. But I ended up going to NYU graduate acting school. I got a master's in acting, studied different dialects there. Hence the Ryloth accent was within my reach. I also speak French, so there's that. And I ended up coming back to Los Angeles and getting into sketch comedy. I wrote a one-woman show that was a detailed account of being discovered as a plus-size model and losing 50 pounds and that journey of self-acceptance. And within that journey, there were several characters, and a voiceover agent saw me in that show and said, you might want to try animation. And so I went in and read for her. That was in 1997. And I've been with CESD Talent ever since. And it's been a wonderful journey. I still take classes. I'm actually teaching now. Jennifer Hale, who's an amazing voice actress, she asked me to be a part of her website, skillshub.life. And I was asked recently to teach a group class. And it's so much fun to meet people and help them find their voice. And I'm a strong believer in paying it forward and giving back. So that has sort of come about. But I've had an amazing journey from Lipstick Lady #2 on, I think it was Batman and Beyond a million years ago, and playing something on Scooby-Doo. I think it was Daphne's cousin of indiscriminate European accent to playing Wonder Woman, Black Canary, and the video game Injustice 2, but Black Canary and Young Justice, and meeting all these wonderful fans of Marvel and DC, and of course Star Wars, playing Hera. It's just been really a spectacular ride. Very grateful.
Yeah, well, and since you did mention SAG, I just wanted to at least point out for our listeners that at least what we're going to talk about, Star Wars Rebels, not covered by the SAG or the writers' strike. We definitely support unions and hope all those creatives get a fair deal soon.
Absolutely. Well said.
So we have heard you as Hera on Rebels. That's where Star Wars fans know you best from. But where else have we heard your voice?
Well, it's a safe bet. If the character is green, I've probably voiced it. I played Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy, Hera in Star Wars Rebels, She-Hulk in Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, also played Black Widow there, and Wonder Woman in several of the DC animated films, Red Sun, Flashpoint Paradox, Crisis on Tour. It's all kinds of epic storytelling and, of course, about various myths and heroic journeys.
Well, so did you grow up with Star Wars? Is working on Star Wars something that was like important for you to get involved with?
I did not have that on the agenda. That was a real surprise. I have been a closeted nerd of sorts, in the sense that I didn't really know that we could share this with other people. It was just something that I treasured. I think we all identify, well, I don't know what we all do, but I know that I identify with Luke Skywalker's journey. And I saw the first film, and I definitely wanted to be Princess Leia, especially her hair was like something to, among many other things, her moxie, all of it, loved it. But yes, I went and saw the first film. My aunt took me to the first movie, and I have been in love with the franchise ever since. It's the greatest story ever told, and it just keeps going. I feel so grateful that there's just more and more content to devour in all sorts of mediums. There's wonderful books coming out. There's streaming stuff. It's just, we're so lucky, because there was a period of starvation.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan. Yeah.
No, exactly. I always tell people all Star Wars is good Star Wars, which doesn't necessarily mean it's all for me, but it's good. It's out there. I love that it's for every age and culture and everything like that. So
yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk about Hera then. How did you end up then getting the role for Rebels? Did you have to audition?
Yes, I auditioned for it. It was a codename Wolf project for Disney, and I wasn't sure. It mentioned a light sword, and it had sort of vague elements of Star Wars. And being the Star Wars fan that I am, when I'm reading the copy, I'm thinking like, light sword, that's very Star Wars. And I kind of put it together in my own mind and created a bit of a spiritual journey within the text for me that felt real and specific. And then it actually turned out to be a Star Wars cartoon, which I couldn't believe. So went in for the callback, and Dave Filoni was there, and there you have it. I mean, it just exploded. It was between me and two other women, and I ended up getting it. And I just can't even tell you how grateful I am. I'm so grateful. But as far as auditioning goes, we were, throwing spaghetti at the wall by ourselves in our home studios and hoping that something would stick, which is kind of what it's like. I try to create a soundscape that has integrity, that while it might not be appropriate for a certain casting, it's in fact, well, it's a viable option. We're not interested in it, but at least I respect the choice. So I try and yield something that will either please them on some level, but hopefully I'd love to work with them. And if not, I had a fun time producing it. So I feel stimulated, and it's still meaningful regardless of the result.
And you did then record together once everyone was cast?
Oh yeah, sort of like a radio drama. Yeah.
Oh,
which was
cool.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. I think it was every Thursday.
Okay. Yeah, I really do think of everyone alone by themselves responding to nothing. So that actually, to me, says a lot about why it feels like such a family environment then.
Yeah. But equally, I've done some of the Star Wars games, and I played a Jedi and this and that. And I've seen some footage on YouTube of sort of the Jedi Council or whatever it was that was edited all together. And it's so interesting. It seems like we're together, but I've never met half the people that are acting with me in the game. So it's wonderful how they can sort of make magic happen either way.
Well, you attend a lot of conventions and stuff like that. What kind of feedback do you get about Hera? What does it mean to fans who find you?
Well, it means a lot when I hear from dads that they're finally able to take their Star Wars figures out of storage and share them with their daughters. And the dads thank me for playing such an iconic female character that their daughters can look up to. And likewise with the Sabine character. And I'm like, well, I had nothing to do with it. You should talk to Filoni, of course, and the whole amazing team. Yeah, so it's very rewarding in that regard. When I see women cosplaying as Hera, it's so special to see sort of a real life version of what I'd only seen as an animated character. And there's just such a love for what Lucasfilm created. She's really impressive amalgamation of sort of the best parts of humanity, or obviously she's a Twi'lek, but she's very nurturing. She's focused and strong. She's also combative and speaks up. She does the right thing without apology. And it's just when she does that and she plays full out, and, you know, she's not Spectre 1, she's Spectre 2. She has the humility to know that it's better to look like she doesn't matter on some level because she actually has all the answers, you know, puts Kanan in Spectre 1 position. I think that kind of strategic humility she's wise. Yeah, I learned a lot from playing her.
Oh, that's interesting. So do you take some of her lessons or some of her strengths home with you?
Oh, for sure. I am very gregarious and playful, and she seems far more disciplined and together. And I mean, I think there's a place for both, right? Like I think too much of one is not healthy. And I think she maybe exhibited some of that. She was so focused. It's like the love thing with Kanan was not on the menu. But then we don't always know how much time we have. And unfortunately, she lost that and wished that she could have spent more time in that moment, but she had other priorities. So she did pay a price for that. And I can get easily distracted, and I'm a bit more of like a kooky comedian. I did stand up for many, many years. And I also am a martial artist, and I'm completely hardcore about things, but I'm also silly. And I think she's able to really just stick with the best parts of her personality. I didn't see her suffering from overthinking and apologizing all the time, or taking herself too seriously, or whatever it is, you know,
Right.
the human foibles that we all face of dealing with sort of the existential reality of what it means to adult on a daily basis, you know. I would ask myself, I would either say, what would Hera do? And then I would, oh, that's what I should do. Or what would Freddie do? Because Freddie is probably the smartest person I've ever met. Like that guy, he's amazing, truly.
Well, you mentioned a little bit about the sort of romance or potential romance between Hera and Kanan. I honestly thought it was fact. You know, I feel like even in the like pilot episode, they're calling each other love or something like that. And then like later, as the seasons went on, I was like, oh, are they not together? I just assumed they were. And then by the end, there is that sort of storyline of should have made different use of time, but different priorities and all that kind of stuff.
I think there were lives at risk, and it just wasn't the time for that. But yeah. I mean, but I do think we all can learn from that, you know, we keep putting off having fun or enjoying ourselves, and we are not guaranteed anything really. And it's important to make time to let people know that they matter, or to let people know that they're loved. You know, everyone is so driven today, and our schedules are so bananas that watching her grieve, I think what I thought about was, how can I, you know, dig more into my own life in different ways and learn from her mistake there.
Right. No, absolutely.
Vanessa, what do you want to say about storytelling and how that interplays with spirituality?
Great question. The reason I love voice acting and I love the theater and I love the ritual of those things is that I feel that they're very necessary. I feel that we come together as a culture, and I feel that we need to heal and work through things. One of the reasons I responded so well to George Lucas and his storytelling is that I felt like he gave me an opportunity to really live through the hero's journey and these rites of passage and these moments that come up in our lives where we can forgo this opportunity to change the course of the rest of our lives, but to do the right thing. And I feel like there is value in theater that is almost of a religious nature. I feel that it's a very sacred experience at times. I think even going to the movies and seeing these Star Wars films for me was a sacred experience. And equally, I would say that there's a level of theatricality to religious ritual. Mm-hmm. When, you know, if you look at a Catholic mass, there's a lot of ritual going on. In Haitian Voodoo ceremonies, there's a lot of theatricality going on. And I feel like somewhere between those things is this very special place and a real genuine need that we have as a culture to gather around and discuss these things. And I also think it's a great educational tool for kids, because these myths are constructs through which we can teach human values and ethics and how to deal with grief and struggle and the perils of being imperfect and human, and the appetite to, destroy things, and how all this stuff is all perfectly natural, and that there is a path forward. And some of these characters and these stories lead the way for us and mean so much to people. And for me, as a person who writes hashtag Star Wars family on a daily basis, I feel like I've found my family through this storytelling. So in that regard, chosen family through storytelling is so powerful to me and necessary that it's why I do this. And I do it in a 30-second commercial. I do it in a 60-second commercial, in a cartoon, in a video game, even in a movie trailer, in narration, whatever the story is, more sort of there's a problem and a solution in a commercial. And that's my job, is to elucidate that for the listener, give them the good news of whatever the product promises. But when I went to acting school at NYU, ultimately, and got my master's in acting, they asked me to consider that, in fact, it is not grandiose and narcissistic to be an actor. It actually takes great humility to almost be like a shaman and to offer oneself up to be visible with a level of their humanity and imperfection, that much like a shaman goes on a spiritual journey for the benefit of the tribe, that the actor goes through a transformation for all of us to see and heal through, that it isn't egoism, it's actually a self-sacrifice in a way. And that helped me understand that this isn't about the results. This isn't about the, cash and prizes that can come so often with Hollywood fame, but rather a story well told that, even like when Ahsoka leaves, that excellent moment of silence after so many episodes that ended, it's so moving to me. This is what I did when I met Ashley Eckstein. I wept, not because she's famous. I wept because she told a story one day that made me realize that every choice I make matters, that every word I say matters, and that we need each other. And then, for her to cut to go in Rebels, and Snips finally sees Anakin through the mask that rips open at that season finale, I thought I was going to lose my mind,
Yeah.
Anyway, I care about this. And I'm not trying to do that. Like, you can't take that away from my soul. That is a moment that's forever etched in me, that I thank David Filoni and that whole crew for creating such magic storytelling, that if I could be a part of something like that, there's nothing else that matters to me. So.
Wow. Yeah. You talk about the transformative power of acting and kind of the ritual of it. But yeah, it's like both, religious ritual and acting. It's same, that sort of storytelling around the campfire, and very much the transformation of, the storyteller there as they become the different roles, as they tell the story, and, they become who they are. And yeah, just the nature of Star Wars is that it becomes this much larger thing, that it tells these different stories, but they have that mythology. There's heroes' journeys, there's chosen family, there's all these things that are kind of big things, and it breaks it down in a way that we can see it through the sci-fi lens, kind of the mythological lens of this is what it could be like. It's not like this on Earth now for us in the present, but this is how it could be when we say what if. And that kind of speaks in our souls a little bit about, how things are, when we bring in larger forces than just humans.
And what's fascinating to me is that it's so universal. It is in outer space and it is in another time and this and that, but it is so profoundly universal. That to me is why it's so important. It's not just a silly cartoon. Like Clone Wars it healed a lot of things. Storytelling is really important. I mean, okay, imagine a world where there are no books, there's no Netflix, there's no Disney Plus, and you're alone in the pandemic in the dark. Forget it, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
No PlayStation 5. We need these narratives. The Last of Us, that journey, so profound. Like, these are not just silly pastimes. I really think it's not a narcissistic exercise. I think it's actually, it takes such generosity of spirit to volunteer for that, and especially people in like super duper famous public eye, blah blah blah. They give up a lot in terms of their own privacy to tell us these stories. But that's not what I value about it. It's really, I come from a theater background, and I love watching religious ritual because it's like, guys are sneakily being so theatrical right now.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the outfits. I love the whole thing.
Yeah. It is interesting to me because I grew up in the Catholic Church, and also doing, theater thing, Shakespeare and theater and stuff like that in my grade school and stuff. And I don't think I really thought about it too much at the time, but they fit together, right? It was like I was interested in a pageant, and so I did both of those things, both at church and in the school auditorium. And there's a lot of similarities in my experiences and my memories of those.
Yeah,
those
there's
things.
a script and kind of a set formula of like a play has these parts, and the rise and fall, and then a religious service has its parts that you do the readings, and then you do the Eucharist and Catholicism, and you have this homily in between, and then it's like you're out there.
Sure.
I think one of the things with storytelling is, like you say, the healing quality. There's that catharsis that sometimes, you're watching something and good storytelling makes you feel. And it makes you feel not just what your own feelings are, but you feel what the characters are meant to feel. And, it's like, how can you watch a Pixar film and not cry in it? Whether it's, a cry of sorrow or a cry of just utter triumph over adversity.
Sure.
And so that's that healing. It brings our emotions in.
There's something about it that I feel is so valuable. And if I can serve that, they taught us in graduate acting at NYU that the playwright is the key, and that we're there to lift those words up, and that's our job. And it's not about us. So it's just such a different view. When I came back to Los Angeles, and they were like, how much do you weigh? All this stuff that, like, wait, what? I'm a good person. I did Commedia dell'arte mask work. I did Pirandello. They were like, what? They didn't teach the business of acting at graduate school. The business of acting is something quite different. But even within all of that business stuff, the cool thing I've found that I love is that with social media, there's an element of using one's platform to give back. That even though there is that, playing the game of kind of the humble brag and the this and the that actors have to do on social media to promote things, there's also such a sweetness about, particularly in the voiceover community, different actors volleying up the work of others. And I love that there's a community in that regard. But anyway, to stick to the storytelling and the theatricality of it, I love Joseph Campbell, and I appreciate that George Lucas did too, and really embrace that in his work. And I find sort of the anthropological elements of that, if we could look at that as a science, that there is some STEM-like value to the storytelling and the cultural need for helping kids move through these rites of passage, helping adults move through various rites of passage that both religion and theater and film and art all work together on a cultural level to heal us.
So with the hero's journey, as Campbell kind of puts it together, that there's the call to adventure and the mentor, and then kind of the different levels of, like, entering the underworld and stuff. Are there any particular aspects of that really stick out to you as kind of the key parts to you?
I think the call to adventure. I because it's such a pivotal moment that kicks off the rest of the screenplay. It's just that one moment when we can turn away from the chance of playing full out. And when I get to watch a character make that choice and dive in, It's so satisfying. That to me is just the most pivotal moment, because he could easily have gone and done his chores, Skywalker. He really could have. And imagine what that would have been like. Thank goodness he made
It would have been a very dull movie. Or just very short as the stormtroopers come and kill him.
Yeah. I feel like the call to adventure is the part that bristles the most for me. And then, of course, you're going into the underworld, all of that stuff. Everything that follows is, of course, obviously incredibly meaningful, and all put together creates this catharsis that you mentioned that is perhaps the most valuable. But that moment makes me realize that I need to pay attention in my own life for those opportunities, and to remind myself how important it is to play full out and do the right thing every chance I can. And it matters. That's true for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Moving off of Star Wars to Frozen 2, do the next right thing. That really, spoke to me, and it's just like, hey, you don't know what to do the next right thing. And I think that is an important lesson for everyone. And, maybe if Anakin had paid attention to that a little more, he goes on this hero's journey, but then it becomes sort of off of that script and becomes, the tragedy. Are there other kind of stories that don't fit quite the Campbellian myth, but, are out there that are also important stories that we use?
Well, my favorite film was All That Jazz, which is a little bit darker, but it is about the reality of death and, the stages of grief for those of us who are living. It's sort of the final season of Rebels, really, and the review of one's life and how it was lived. And I remember when that came out, I was probably too young to be watching it, but I watched it over and over again. I just couldn't consume enough of it. What the afterlife was like, it was about Bob Fosse's life and all the sort of carnal things that he did, and his regrets and his joys, and the rise of his success, and how his family suffered, and just how it left other people in its wake. His meteoric rise, his daughter's reaction, the wife, the ex-wife, the this, the that. That's the end of the story, perhaps not necessarily his beginning. It was a stark look at choices made, but that's maybe, I was going to say, a little bit like the world between worlds, if you will, because it's sort of a very meta look at, no one knows what happens when we die. And I mean, even at age 10, that was something that was fascinating me back then. But
it's the great mystery.
Yeah, definitely. But trying to think other stories. I mean, there are all sorts of great films, like Back to the Future is even brilliant, or, Indiana Jones. But those kind of follow the hero's journey a bit. That's a great question. I don't know. Can you think of any that are outside of that are also poignant?
I think also, kind of the tragedy and, or this one of looking at your life and reflecting on it. Sometimes there's just like the comic story that, it's not necessarily a journey, but it's the same time things happen and things get crazy, and, maybe people learn, or maybe just, we learn that things can get out of hand, but you just hang in there, and sometimes you just got to laugh about things.
Right. Maybe like The Jerk, but I mean, that's sort of hero's journey. Never mind.
Yeah, it's hard though to separate these things. Like there's so much that influences each other, or that are almost the same story. You just can't tell because of all these, it's not Star Wars, it's this, but a lot of similarities there.
But I agree with you that there's value in comedy. That's also very cathartic for us to learn through someone's. I think there's one character in the Italian Commedia dell'arte, and I can never remember the character's name. And this is morbid, but it's somehow funny. Throughout every show, he's trying to kill himself. And every time he has an epic fail. So every time he comes on stage, there's like a new attempt that didn't work. And then the next time he comes on stage, he tried to, that is incredibly morbid, and it's endlessly funny, sort of like Scooby-Doo funny, or Tom and Jerry funny, or, Tarantino violent funny, if you will.
Right.
Wow, I've never put Scooby-Doo and Tarantino together in the same thought.
Well, they're hijinks and what have you. And I mean, it's so campy,
Right.
not necessarily scary or gory. And of course, it is both of those things, and yet meant to be campy. I think that's what makes it funny. It's safe to laugh at someone who can't kill themselves, right? Only in that scenario. Anywhere else, that's horrifying. It's time for an intervention, and there are all sorts of telephone numbers that can be dialed for support. And if anyone's feeling lonely and depressed, you matter, and we're here for you. But back in the day in Italy, that was considered comedy. But my point is this, that we all wrestle with the here and now and what happens after, and how we contend with, Samuel Beckett dealt with this in many of his plays, Waiting for Godot, how we deal with the comings and goings. Chekhov dealt with it with the three sisters, going to Moscow. We're constantly trying to go to Moscow, and we're constantly saying goodbye over and over again. But we're never getting to Moscow, or are we? I don't know. This is the struggles of family life. But anyway, yeah, so that's sort of my background. And I wanted to major in anthropology at Princeton. And then I went to the religion department and ended up in the English department, getting at all these topics and all the best stories ever told and written down. And that's how I landed on being an English major. So for it to come full circle and for me to be involved with the Lucasfilm franchise is just miraculous. And I think what it shows is, they have that phrase, don't quit before the miracle happens. We just never know where our lives are going to take us. And it's worth it to hang in there to find out, because it can be beyond your wildest dreams. And it has been for me. So I'm grateful that I've stuck in my own hero's journey to keep on adulting.
Keep on adulting.
It's worth it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So Vanessa, who's your favorite Star Wars character?
That's something we ask all of our guests. I feel like I can guess what yours is, but why don't you tell us?
My favorite Star Wars character is Asajj Ventress. I love her.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
I know, right? Unexpected.
I want to know more about her. I cannot read the book in which she meets her final day. I can't do it. So anyway, I want to know more about her, and I'm just so curious. I feel like if she had spent more time with Ahsoka, I really wonder if we could have gotten her over to our side. And it could have happened. I mean, Dooku really didn't do her right, and I think there's more to be told there. But unfortunately, she's no longer with us. But spoiler alert.
Dark Disciple is a bit of a gut punch of a book.
Yeah, I have it by my bed, and I haven't read it yet. Because I mean to, but I'm not. There's too much loss. Like I can't take another. I just can't do it. But it's right there.
Okay, I really thought you were going to say Hera was your favorite character, but I like that. Oh, one last question about Hera before we let you go.
Well, you mentioned before the sort of Ryloth accent of Hera, and that it was your learning French background actually helped you with that.
The Ryloth accent sounds very much like a French accent, very similar. People say it sounds almost French or Israeli. Yeah.
And was that just sort of set by, Twi'leks in the original, trying to think like Bib Fortuna, like I'm trying to think of like where it came from, the way that
Well, actually, Oren Frita and Cham Syndulla in the Clone Wars,
right,
they had that accent. I'm not sure with Bib, but I believe that was sort of established back then in those episodes of the Clone Wars. So
that's interesting, because it's like I hadn't heard that or really thought that about the Twi'leks, but there are other ones like that where, like Gal Gadot has an Israeli accent, so everyone in Themyscira has that sort of accent, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, gosh, she's amazing. I love her.
Yeah, what's it like playing Wonder Woman?
Oh, an honor. I mean, that was another one that blew my mind. I got to play Wonder Woman. That was really just my mind exploded. What an honor.
Yeah, join the ranks of only handfuls of people to play some of these characters is that's a big deal.
It was just so grateful. Yeah.
Now that the show is off the air, but people are still finding it, right? I only watched Rebels, I think a year and a half ago or something like that. With it being on Disney Plus, it's just one of those things that people keep rediscovering. So do you find that, the Rebels love has sort of waxed and waned over the years of your attending conventions?
No, it's very much alive. Yeah, I don't think it has waned at all. If anything, I think it's grown stronger because we all miss each other. I've made a lot of friends at various conventions, and I have a few coming up and a bunch next year. I'm very excited to go just see my friends again. Hopefully I'll be at New York Comic Con because we have a tradition of Vader tots.
What is a Vader tot?
It's a tater tot, but it's got, a Star Wars flair for the event.
Amazing.
Just for that New York Comic Con weekend, I guess.
What other conventions are you doing coming up?
Funny you should ask. Next weekend, I'm going to be at Fairfax Comic Con, August 26th and 27th. That's in Fairfax, Virginia. If you go to Fairfax Comic Con on Instagram, you'll find that. And then I'm in Savannah, Georgia, Superstar Comic Con, September 23rd and 24th. So anyone in Georgia, Savannah, come say hi. Yeah, October 6th and 7th, I'm in Tampa at something called Spookala, I think Spookala. So anyone in Florida, come say what's up. And then I'm going to be in Mesa, Arizona, October 27th and 20 through the 29th at UWUCon. So you've got Virginia, you've got Georgia, you've got Tampa, you've got Arizona. And then hopefully I'll be in Atlanta for the DreamHack convention. I'm actually coming to you from my new live streaming studio. I am launching Women Crush Wednesday live stream. Hopefully next week, we should have all our pyrotechnics together here. But I'm going to be live streaming and playing the video games that I voice: Shiva in Mortal Kombat, Black Canary in Injustice 2, Olga in the Metal Gear Solid franchise. But we have a merch store that we're putting together.
Nice.
So I hope to have Kari Walgren and a bunch of different voiceover ladies over for Women Crush Wednesdays, and we'll attempt to play the games that we all voice.
Nice. That's awesome.
I'd love to do a live stream of it at the DreamHack December event in Atlanta. That's where you can find me, and you can always find me on Twitch at Vanessa Marshall 1138. Same as my Instagram handle. Come say hi on Wednesday nights. It'll be launching soon. I look forward to seeing everybody there. If you're in the mood to play, I want to have fun and pay it forward. That's my goal.
Yeah, we'll make sure to include links to all of that stuff. The live stream stuff sounds amazing because people love voiceover panels, right? At Comic-Con and places like that, they're always packed with fans. And it's just fun to watch people sort of slip in and out of voices and talk about,
Well, that's what we did at the DreamHack event. We would pop into people's live streams, and I would just say like a Shiva line, like "for the show come," and they would go, "Oh my God!" It's sort of strange that there are people living and breathing. When we went to Dallas and raised all kinds of money for the American Heart Association, and we were doing panels for the Diablo game that also was released that weekend. Halo panels. I hosted a bunch of different activations. I'm finally able to use my stand-up comedy skills and hosting abilities at these events. And I just love it. I feel like we deserve to have so much fun after being locked away for a few years. It's so wonderful. Yeah.
Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on and sharing, some of your behind the scenes stuff about Star Wars, and also, just the way you think about storytelling was really interesting. And
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm grateful that we were able to connect.
Well, it is very good to see you, Vanessa. That wraps up this episode of Star Warsologies. We want to thank our guest, Vanessa Marshall, and we want to thank all of you for listening.
If you're looking for the links we talked about and all of those great conventions that Vanessa is going to be part of, check out our show notes page, which is available at skywalkingthroughneverland.com/star-warsologies. And check out the Star Warsologies YouTube channel, where we post some episodes with related visuals from Star Wars.
If you have an idea for a topic for Star Warsologies or know an expert we should interview, let us know at Star Warsologies on Twitter and Instagram, or at starwarsologies@gmail.com. That's StarWarsologies. We also have a fan group on Facebook. Come visit it. It's the Star Warsologies podcast fan group. Very clever. So join today, chat with us and your fellow listeners.
Please also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite service and share it with your friends.
No topic is off limits, even if wondering the ghost shuttle, the Phantom, is the real Phantom Menace.
We are part of the Skywalking Network, where you can also find a variety of other great shows about Star Wars, Disney, and Marvel, including the Neverland Clubhouse and the flagship show Skywalking Through Neverland. There's a YouTube show, too, called Today in Star Wars History. You can find all of that at skywalkingnetwork.com.
See you next time on Star Warsologies, where we talk about blue food. Go get your blue milk and join us.